Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Conversations with Courageous Cancer Warriors. And I am so excited for our guest today, Ms. Peggy Sherry. This lady is a powerhouse. She is a 19-year cancer survivor and also the founder of an amazing, amazing organization called Faces of Courage. Peggy, thank you so much for being here today.
Lori, thank you for inviting me.
I am like, when I researched what you're up to in the world, I was so moved. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got started in this.
It's one of those long stories, but I'll try to make it really short. I started a group in Tampa, and it was a volunteer-based group. It is one of the Gasparilla crews. And through that crew, I was talking to other nonprofits about volunteer opportunities. And someone had suggested that we as a crew provide volunteer opportunities for a cancer camp that was based out of upstate New York, but had an office in Tampa. And I wrote to them and said, I would love to help. I've got all these volunteers. And through a weird set of serendipitous things, I ended up running that program in Tampa. They were looking for a director, and I ended up running that camp. And about 4 years into it, we had started with 75 families, and we had about 700 families. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. And 6 months later, I was diagnosed a second time with two different types of breast cancer. And the cancer camp I was working for decided that I couldn't run the programs and fight cancer, and they closed the office. And so everyone started contacting me saying, hey, when are we going to camp? Hey, when are we going to do an outing? And I was like, I don't work for them any longer. And one of my volunteers said, listen, Peggy, they don't know who, the New York people are. They only know you, and they want to go to camp. And, they don't care what name is on the door. And so we started Faces of Courage with an inheritance that I got from my parents, who both did have cancer during their lives. And we started Faces of Courage about 6 weeks after my double mastectomy.
Wow. Wow. Well, first of all, at the time, I'm sure you weren't really happy about how things went down. But in the end, it ends up being a blessing, right? It's kind of like cancer in a weird way. You're really mad that it happens to you, but then there is always a silver lining that comes from it.
I think so, because we were able to do things that other organization probably never would have attempted. Very early on, we saw a need to make events that were for minorities. And so we were the first ones in the world to start a women of color cancer camp. And from the very get-go, that was a very important camp because of minorities and the death rate in the minority community and the access to treatments. And it allowed us the opportunity to educate the minority community and to provide programming as a gateway. It was always my idea to have a gateway, an open door to say, please come, trust us. And then we want you to self-integrate into the other programs. And that's exactly what happened.
I love that. And so, talk to me a little bit about what you do at camp.
Well, it depends on whether we're doing a children's camp, a teen camp, an adult camp. All the women's camps, whether it's the open women camp or the women of color camp, they're identical. We come in on Friday night, we have a welcome party, we do gourmet meals for them. Then we bring in speakers, and we always do Straight Talk About Cancer, where our doctors and nurses who work with our program, everybody's a volunteer except for me. I'm payroll, but I'm paid the same as I was paid in 2004 when we started. But everyone else, we have 1,600 volunteers. So I have doctors and nurses that come in and do sessions on Straight Talk About Cancer. I mean, what are the things that you don't have time to ask your doctor, or you're afraid to ask your doctor? Our doctors and nurses come in tennis shoes and shorts and Hawaiian shirts and sit down with the ladies and let the ladies run the conversation and answer their questions. Then the next day we get up and do a breakfast, and we do canoeing and kayaking and fishing and archery and tie-dye and arts and crafts. And in the afternoon, we usually do paraffin hands, and we have people come and do hair and makeup, and then we bring in speakers. Every camp has different speakers on different topics, what's new, what's relevant, what there is that we allow the campers to check out in integrative medicine. Have you ever done yoga? Have you ever done Tai Chi? Have you ever done guided visualization, hypnotherapy, acupuncture? And then we do a big dance in the evening. It usually is a theme dance. We do tribal drumming. We do a memorial to those who have left us, which is a live butterfly release. And it is a great weekend for people to come and bond with others, whether you are newly diagnosed or whether you're 20 years out. It's important that we have that mixture of people, because the newly diagnosed don't know where they're going. And those who, like me, who have been through this a long time, are there to go on the battlefield with them and hold up a torch and lead the way through.
Oh, I love it because it embodies who we are. Like this tribe that you're talking to, we call ourselves warriors because we are not going down without a fight. And you are embodying, you are speaking the spirit of who we are. And I absolutely love this. So are your camps specific times of the year, or how can people kind of get involved with that?
They are. And what we do is that we have an email list. So if someone is a survivor, whether it is a parent of a child, our children's programs start with age 2. Okay. And that's really uncommon for a sleepover camp to start that early. Usually when they go to Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, it's 7 and 8 years old. But the most common age of diagnosis with children is age 2 with leukemia. Yeah. So, we have mailing lists of parents, we have mailing lists of teens, we have mailing lists for the adult women, that we will send out a notice saying registration starts at this time. And then we send everything by email, and they are able to submit their paperwork by email. One thing that's really important is all of our programs are free. We never charge for any of our programs. We've had over 11,000 campers through our program.
I love that. We need you in this world. And I am so proud to be and honored to be having this conversation with you. And it's one of those things that you don't realize that you need something like this until you need something like this. So the fact that you are able to provide these amazing services without cost to anybody is unheard of, right? It's unheard of. And I'm kind of speechless. Like I kind of don't know, but so I would love for you to share an experience with us, if you can, about, what we talk about a lot here is, cancer is hard, and it's really like what you make it. If you keep a positive mindset, it makes it a little bit easier, but there are some times where you just can't do that. So I would love to hear your wisdom. How did you get through what you went through and still came out and were positive about it?
I was very blessed that I had been running cancer camps before I was diagnosed with cancer. And so I had been sitting around many a fire with other cancer, a bonfire with other cancer survivors, hearing their stories. And the reality is, it's not just going after and killing the cancer cells. There are so many things that are involved. How do you tell your family? How do you deal with it directly? How do people react to you having cancer? Sometimes a family member, a close family member or friend will disappear who you think that you would be able to rely on, where total strangers run in. Oh, yeah. A great experience is I was diagnosed, and one of my dearest friends walked into my office. I was working that day, and she'd been crying all night. Her eyes were swollen. And she said, "We can't be friends any longer. because you're going to die and I can't sit here and watch you die. And she walked out and I never saw her again.
Wow. I mean, we've all had experiences similar, but that one stings a lot, right? Like,
but no one talks about those things.
yeah.
You know, your doctors are there to come up with a treatment plan, and they'll tell you about whether you need surgery or, you know, a mastectomy, or whether you need chemotherapy or whether you need radiation, but they don't tell you a lot of times that your insurance company is going to deny your claims, or that your friends that you think you can rely on are going to disappear,
Yeah.
or that everyone is going to tell you stories that are of someone close to them who died of what you are that you're fighting. And there's just so many other things involved, that it isn't just the cancer you're fighting. It's how do you deal with your children? How do you deal with your work? 50% of the women diagnosed with breast cancer lose their jobs, or their husbands walk out on them.
Yeah.
And so you're not only dealing with the cancer, you're dealing with this plethora of issues that in all by themselves, they are a nightmare. But if we can just, as survivors, tell each other how to get through this, that's the important thing. I had this one woman that she called me after camp, and she had been one of these unique people at camp that I just thought, oh my God, you are a pain in my rear end. You are so negative. And she called me and she said, you know, Peggy, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I remember you. You know, you're the witch that I would spell with a B. And she said, do you want to hear my story? And I said, I'm dying to hear your story, because she was so miserable at camp. And she said, I was diagnosed and my doctor told me I needed to go to camp, and I didn't want to. My husband called you and he got the paperwork and he completed the paperwork and he packed my bags and he put my suitcase in the trunk of the car. And Friday afternoon, he told me that he was taking me to the mall in Brandon, which is close to our camp. And he took the back way and he turned into camp. He took my phone, he took my purse, he took my suitcase, and he dropped me at camp. And she goes, and that's when I met you. She said, I was diagnosed, I'm stage 0, and I don't think that I could get through this. And she said, and I was so mad to be there, but I was in a cabin with someone who had been diagnosed 4 other times and was a stage 4. It was in her liver, it was in her lungs, it was, you know, it was really bad. And I realized that I had it good. I was stage 0. And when my husband picked me up, I hugged him and kissed him. And when we got home, I gave him the note that I had written before this happened and the gun that I had purchased, because I was going to kill myself when he was gone that weekend. And that tells you that everyone deals with it differently.
Yeah.
And that we need to know, one, that you can live through this. The majority of us that are diagnosed now do live through it, but it's not an easy path.
No.
And I think that if we can explain what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen when you go to chemo. This, you know, these are ways to get through it. When you have sores in your mouth because the chemo has given you blisters down your throat, that if someone tells you that you can eat with a plastic spoon better than you can eat with a metal spoon, that'll help. Shakes that will help. You know, things that you can do to make it easier. We can't rely anymore on the doctors who are understaffed and overworked.
Yep.
To, you know, they have this big monster sitting on their shoulders saying, you have to see this many people a day. You have to make these kind of notes. You have to be computer literate and update all these files every day. They don't have time to tell you the secrets of getting through cancer.
Exactly. Agreed.
And that's what we're here there, you know, to tell you the tips and the hacks and the secrets
I
to
love
getting
it.
through.
Yeah, I mean, this really resonates with me because I surprised myself that when I was diagnosed, I had a really hard time telling people. And I'm of a medical background, right? Like I'm a pathology assistant. I've dealt with cancer my entire career. And when I found myself on the other side of the table, I was really overwhelmed, which is how I became a wellness coach. And one of the things that to this day, you know, when you shared the story of your girlfriend just being like, I'm out, it resonated with me because I knew that I would not be able to handle other people's emotions because I was having such a hard time with my own that I didn't share this news with people that I was friends with for 20 years. And there's some of them to this day that still will not talk to me because they were so mad when they found out. And I did not feel comfortable disclosing till almost like a year after, right? Like I just cocooned and I just had a small group because I had to. I knew I couldn't do things alone. I had a bilateral mastectomy. I was very limited in what I can do. So I had to tell some people to have some support. But it really is fascinating to me that people were upset that I didn't share it. But I know I didn't share it because I couldn't deal with the pity. I couldn't deal with the questions. And like I was validated when I had a friend who is in the medical field and I told them, and I kind of didn't want to, but I'm like, you know what? She might be of benefit to me. She might be able to help me. She's a nurse. And she literally said, oh my God, this is happening to you because you've never had children and you're probably going to die because of it. And I was like, I don't need to hear this right now. You're not helping me.
We could write a book about the horrible things that people have
Right?
said. And
Terrible.
I'll tell you one of the worst ones is that 2 days before my double mastectomy, I was doing a fundraiser. And a man who was a close friend of my husband, when my husband was alive, at that time, he came up and he said, so I hear that you're having a big surgery in 2 days. And I said, yes. And he said, so they're doing a double mastectomy. And I said, yeah, we're, you know, here's the time, here's the place. And he goes, so they're cutting off your breasts. And I said, yes. And he goes, well, when you're done with them, can I have them?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What did he want to do with them?
I
And
think he thought he was being funny, but it's just and that is again another piece of the puzzle of how the we feel as survivors that we need to bolster you up with our good news of, oh, I have another doctor appointment on this day, and we get a scan on this day, and you become a great patient.
Mhm.
Through time, you become that great cancer patient. And the other thing that we never talk about is that day, April 24th, was my day, the last day to go to the doctor. And the doctor says, go forth and be normal.
Mhm.
I'll see you in a year. And all of a sudden you're like, yes, yes, I have waited for this day. And then you walk out of the doctor's office and there's quicksand.
Yeah.
And you fall into the quicksand of, oh my God, who's looking after me? Who's going to do my blood work? Who's going to get my test results? When's the cancer coming back? How's it coming back? Where's it coming back? Oh my God, I need my doctor. I need my team.
Yeah.
And then someone asks you, how are you? And you don't know how to answer anymore
Right.
because you don't have that plan.
Yeah.
I don't have any doctor's appointment. I don't know how I am any longer. I've been holding this facade up for 2 years of, oh, everything's fine. We're going to get through
Good.
this.
Yeah.
And in the darkest of nights, you don't know that the words you're saying to your friends are true.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't
true.
know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if you do have children and you're putting up that facade of, it's mom's great, everything's fine. I say that everyone just kind of needs to learn how to cry in the shower.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
when you have family members and you don't want them to see the cracks in your great facade of, oh, we're beating this.
Yeah.
Don't look here, because I'm not sure I'm beating this.
And that's, thank you for sharing that, because that's why having a community of people who have gone through something similar is so important. Because I hope for the people listening right now that they really hear it. Because, yeah, you might have to keep a facade up with your friends and your family, and you need to be the strong one. But there's people like us out there that are willing to have you, cry on our shoulder when you need it. Call me, text me, scream at me when you need it. If it's what you need at the moment to get through, like, we're here. We're
Mhm.
here. Come find us. And it's so hard to maintain that facade and not have that release.
It
So for
is.
those, yeah.
And I think it's really important that your message to your friends and your coworkers are very clear. And one of the things that I suggest when someone is newly diagnosed is, well, now we have Facebook. I mean, we didn't have Facebook when I went through it, but Caring Bridge is a wonderful thing, and it's a free website that is for people that are facing things like cancer. And it's easy to do. Anyone can build a Caring Bridge page. It allows you to post your story from yourself. It's not the neighbor sharing your story, it's coming from the horse's mouth. And it allows your friends and coworkers to put their well wishes without needing you to reciprocate by answering them.
Yeah, it's great.
And it allows you to update your story as it goes. You can post pictures. I think that was really important. That was something I did. And the first week that I went through some of my major surgeries, 1,500 people had posted on that. And the way I look at that was 1,500 phone calls my husband didn't get.
Yes.
And that was 1,500 times he didn't have to vomit my story.
Yes.
Because that gets just, as a caregiver and as someone who's in the middle of this, we don't want to just talk about our story. I want to hear the gossip from work.
Yeah.
I want to hear what's going on in the news. I want you to come and talk to me about things that don't have to do with me holding that facade up.
Exactly. You want it to be normal, right? You don't want to have it be always that. And I think that's part why I didn't tell people,
Mhm.
right? I kept it to myself because I didn't want to have to deal with it. To be
Well,
honest.
everyone does it different.
Yeah.
Lori, you chose to keep it private. Other people choose to be a victim and to be extremely loud, shouting it from the business tops. Other people just keep it within their clan. Everyone takes it and does it differently. But I can tell you, after having 11,000 campers through my program, the people who win at this are the people who have a positive outlook. And you
Absolutely.
can't have a positive outlook every day. And my theory on this is, if you are in the dumps, just the serious dumps for 3 days, you need to call your doctor. There's medication for you. If sometimes you just have a bad day and you sleep through the night and you wake up and then you're like, okay, I'm back, I can handle this. But if you're in it and you're in the weeds and and you feel like you're sinking in those weeds for 3 days, you need to go get something. That's what those drugs are meant for. And get that help or talk to someone about this. But it's hard. It's not an easy thing. And my doctor, when I was diagnosed, my surgeon walked in and she goes, give me a year of your life and I will give you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
This doesn't go away in a week. It doesn't go away in a month. And we are not ever going to be the person we were before we heard the words, you have cancer. we do get post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It is just like taking someone and putting them in a rice field with a gun, with people shooting at them, with not too much knowledge, and then having to live that life for a year or 2 years, and then you pluck them out and go, you're done. And you put them on 42nd Street in New York, and they can't figure out why someone's looking in the window going, I would die if I don't have those shoes.
Yeah.
And then a car backfires and they hit the ground.
Yeah.
We don't look at the world the same
It's true.
after we fought cancer, and we never will.
It's true. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to cope with, right? I wanted to go back to my innocent self. I wanted to go back to how things were. I didn't want to have to worry about stuff, right? And that was where my anger stemmed from. Like, we all have our own version of that. And it's so true. And it's hard to explain it to somebody when they're like, just be happy. And I'm like, I can't. I'm processing, right? And you just do the best you can every day.
Well, and I think that it's very important that when you get to that April 24th, you get to the end of your treatment, that you have a plan, that you have goals.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes when I'm sitting and talking to a cancer survivor, and I'll say, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of flying. What about flying makes you frightened? I could die in a plane. You just fought cancer.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more frightening than hearing the words you have cancer, unless it's your child has cancer, because you don't hear the words you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you, since you have fought cancer, be afraid of anything else? So you need to go out and really grasp at life and get the most out of this life, because none of us know how long we're going to be here.
I love that.
And we can worry, when's it coming back? Where's it coming back? How's it coming back? But I'll give you a perfect example of what I think about that. Is I have one of my campers, she's been camper for 6 years, just the most delightful lady, 86 years old, had cancer 18 years beforehand, breast cancer, had one breast removed. And she called me and she said, Peggy, they found something in the other breast. And I said, okay, what's the plan? Well, we're going to do this scan on this day, and I'm going to get blood work up, And she says, I'm really worried. And I said, you can't jump off the bridge until you get to the bridge. You can think that the bridge is going to be wide and high and the water is going to be rushing through,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't jump off the bridge until you know what you're facing. And we won't know what you're facing until the scans are back. And that could be weeks. And so I said, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. And I just want you to go about your life as you were before you got that phone call. And then when you get the results, we're going to come back around, and then we're going to look at the bridge and figure out how we're going to jump off this bridge. And 2 days later, she was getting off a bus where she was going to those classes at USF. Our University of South Florida had some elder classes, and a 16-year-old ran her over and killed her.
Oh my God.
She was living her life. She could have been sitting in a dark room crying, wondering what was going to happen with that cancer, but she didn't. She was living her life. And that's really what we need to do.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just,
when I finished one of my big surgeries, my toenails started falling off. And it was because I'd been under for so long. That's how my body reacted. I used to get lines all the way across my nail beds, and my toenail popped off. And I'm like, oh my God, I have toe cancer. And then I was like, oh, Peggy, like, come back to reality, girl. But that's how a cancer survivor thinks.
yeah.
Is that we always know, noodling in the back of our brain, that it could come back.
Yeah.
But here I am 19 years later, it hasn't come back. Well, it did one. That's early. But, we just have to embrace and I think that there's stages that we go through. When you're newly diagnosed, you are a striver. You're striving to put together your team. You're striving to get the best care. You're striving to figure out what this new lingo is, all of these new words like chemo, important, radiation, and non-compliant is my favorite word. But you are striving to figure it out. And about 2 years into it, you're really a survivor. You've gotten to be a great patient. You understand what they're talking about. You've got it under control. And by 5 years, we need to be working towards being thrivers.
Yeah.
We need to do things that make us happy. And I really believe that dis-ease of the mind causes disease in the body.
Yep.
And so when you finish your treatment and all of a sudden people are drama and trauma and all of this, you need to go for things that make you happy and things that make you want to get up and enjoy life. You have to get out of that victimhood. Some choose to be in victimhood for years. They get something out of that.
Yeah.
There was one of our campers who was an 8-year, she was stage 4 and lived 8 years, but anytime that the cards and the people and the gifts and the food stopped happening, she'd check herself in a hospice for the weekend. And everyone be like, oh my God, she's gonna die. And everyone would bring her gifts, and then she was just fine, for another 6 months. And then it got slow, and she would do it again. And that is not the way you live your life. That is living in victimhood, and really it's not a life. And so to me, it's really important that we, not close the door on it, but change our focus to what can we do to make our life better, and to only surround us with the people around us who enrich us.
Definitely. I couldn't have said it better. It's so true. And the people that you surround yourself with, right? It's that conversation of the 5 people that you surround yourself with is who you become. So make sure that those people are positive people and that they're up to the same things, right? Going through life alone without a diagnosis is hard. So when you add the diagnosis to it, you need to be twice as strong to just get through it. So make sure your support system is one that is worthy of you, really.
And there's stages afterwards. Is what happens when you are starting to date.
Mm-hmm.
And these aren't real.
Yep.
And there's a lot of issues that continue on. A lot of people that have side effects from their chemotherapy, they have neuropathy, they start to lose their sight, their teeth start to shatter from some of the chemotherapies, they have burns from their radiation, they tire easy, they get lymphedema. There's 150 different side effects that can onset 10 years later. And so, there's a lot in there that is mentally challenging.
Yep. Really.
But no one talks about it. The doctors just want to get you healthy and get you out the door and get the next person in there. It takes survivors to talk about these other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I love what you're up to. Like I said, it's completely in alignment of our thought process and what we're up to here. So I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom with us. And I am so excited to, I'm going to be right there with you. Our motto here is live courageously, and you embody that. So thank you. Thank you for who you are in the world. Thank you for showing up and just being amazing with people. And thank you for your courage. Like, you embody all of that. And I'm truly honored. And I'm so glad that we got connected. Like, this is just fantastic.
Well, and thank you for spreading the word. A lot of us are just sitting here, hitting the computers. Uh, and it takes the people to get the word out. And that's what you're doing. And I applaud you for that, because it's hard to keep going back and opening up your heart and your soul to talk about something that was very painful in your life. Yeah. And I am always impressed by the people who choose not to shut that door and walk away and say, oh, I don't want to deal with cancer anymore. It's done, it's over. And I'm just not going to look at it again. I think that the people that choose to work with other survivors are always ripping the Band-Aid off of that sore to say, look, yeah, I'm I did it. I've been there with you. One of the interesting things to me was our camp nurse was a nurse for 30 years. And a couple of years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she came to camp and she goes, I'm going to be a different nurse at this camp. And I said, how come? She goes, because I didn't get it till I got it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that's really important to understand is your doctor, his nurses, the person at the front desk haven't had it.
Right. We don't want them to have it, right?
We don't want them to have it.
Right.
But they don't get it the way somebody who has been there and done that gets it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened to me, right? So I've been a PA in oncology for 20 something years, and then I got diagnosed. I had such a hard time returning to work. I'd be crying in the elevator. Like, I was traumatized by being in the space as I was trying to heal myself, that I let it go. I'm like, I need to figure something else out. And I literally quit my job. I didn't really have anything else, but I knew I couldn't sustain it because I had a new learning. And so now what I do is I try to take every avenue possible to educate people. I educate the pathology assistants, right? Like, I was just on a podcast telling them just that. We don't want you to be part of this group, but you need to understand that when you are, it really impacts you. So as professionals, we have a responsibility to make sure that we take care of these patients and to just be compassionate of their needs.
And to hear them.
Yes.
They need to be heard.
Yes.
We did one of our art projects many years ago, and it was to take a doctor's prescription and to write from the cancer survivor's point of view, their prescription of what would help them, and write the prescription to their doctor. And then we got a doctor's coat and we pinned all of these prescriptions to the doctor. And it could be as easy as, I'm not the breast cancer in room 3. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, and I need you to see me for who I am, not just my disease. And the medical community, I feel very bad for our doctors and our nurses and our PAs, because oftentimes these groups have made these mega groups, and these doctors are lured into these mega groups that work with cancer because, the mega group says, oh, we're gonna take care of all the behind the scenes things. You aren't gonna have to work about your place anymore, or billings, or all of that stuff. And the doctors buy into that. And then all of a sudden, the doctors have to see 60 people a day. So they don't have the time to really listen to you. And so we've got to have this, this equality in there that allows the doctor to have the time to listen and see you, but to get his job done.
Yeah. And
we have to kind of see that from both sides. But if we could take the education side off, it's not your OB/GYN does not teach you Lamaze. Mm-hmm. He sends you to someone who teaches you Lamaze because he doesn't have the time. We need Lamaze for cancer.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Exactly. But I feel that that's what you provide.
we try.
You do. And you succeed at it. So I am so excited. I'm going to be at, I'm coming to camp. I'm coming to camp. And,
Yay!
and I will share the links for people to find you. And I feel so blessed and so honored that I have met you. So any last words of wisdom before we leave today?
I just hope that the cancer survivors out there realize that when they hear you have cancer, that this, if you look, that this big curtain will open of people like you and the people at Faces of Courage who are in the business of cancer, who are waving, going, we're here to help you.
Yeah.
We're here. Call on us. You know, we're gonna help you, and we might be able to give you some answers that you can't get.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so how can people find you?
We are at facesofcourage.org, and you can sign up through the website to get our newsletters. So we have newsletters for the kids and the teens and the adults, and they will talk about the different things that we're doing. Like during COVID, we went to online everything. So we were doing meetups online. We are doing enriching arts programs online. But now we are transitioning safely back into in-person. So we'll be doing an upcoming Hillsborough River canoe trip for the women. We are doing Christmas in June and Christmas in July for some of the children. Our women's camp will be the last weekend in September. And our babies 2 to 12 with the kids will be in the first weekend in December. So we are gearing back up. We will continue to do some of our online courses and online education events, because the adult campers that have come from all over the United States, we were losing track of them when they're not at camp. And this has given us an opportunity to see them and give them some resources and some fun events to do. So we will continue to do those.
I love that. I love that. Sounds like an amazing year ahead. So for those of you who want more information, I'm going to provide all the information in the bio for this session. So Sherry, thank you. Peggy, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Lori. Thank you for taking the time and allowing us to highlight our programs.
I love it. I'm just so excited to share. I can't wait. I can't wait.